We turn now to the gospel reading for today. The gospel according to Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. Listen now again for the word of God. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome bought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll the stone away for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Now, after he rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. She went out and told those who had been with him while they were mourning and weeping. But when they heard that he was alive and had been seen by her, they would not believe it. Not at all. After this, he appeared in another form to 2 of them as they were walking into the country, and they went back and told the rest. But they did not believe them either. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Who really buys this story is the subject before the house today, the subject that comes from the text I just read. You know, we have an interesting liturgical year, a kind of mashup with Valentine's Day and Ash Wednesday on the same day, and now April Fool's Day and Easter. It's a challenge for preachers, I can tell you. It's a challenge. One Easter morning in another church, a woman ran up to me as I was trying to make my way to the early service, and she said, "Dr. Carl, I've got a riddle for you." And I said, I don't have time. "No, I got to tell you this riddle." "All right, what is it?" She said, "How many eggs does the Easter bunny lay on Easter morning?" I said, "I have no idea. What's the answer?" She said, "None. Easter bunnies don't lay eggs." "Gotcha," she said, right before I got up to preach. It's really nice. You know, if you can believe that a man can be raised from the dead, I guess you can believe anything. We get sucked into anything, even Easter bunnies laying eggs on Easter morning. I mean, who really buys this story? That's the question before us today. Do you? Does the world? The world is out there wondering what we're doing in here. I tell you what the world would say. The world would say, well, the weak and the gullible, they're the ones who buy this story, the ones who will follow every Pied Piper who comes into town, every flim-flam music man, telling tall tales about a resurrection. I mean, who really buys this story? I mean, we don't have any eyewitnesses. You can read your way through all 4 Gospels. You can stick a microphone in front of all 4 of them, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Were you there? No. Did you see him rise up? Did you see him raised from the dead? No. I mean, what's going on here? We don't have any eyewitnesses to this. I mean, has anyone here seen Jesus raised from the dead? If you do, can I have a witness? Come on up. That's what I thought. We have a lot of attorneys in this church, plenty of them, and they could tell you that you can't build much of a case on circumstantial evidence. That's all we've got here is circumstantial evidence. You can't build much of a case on that, much less a whole religion. No wonder people stay away from churches in droves, even on Easter Sunday, the biggest day of our Christian year. They just stay away. A reporter called me one day and right before Easter and was asking me about Easter lilies, something I know very little about, except I know people are allergic to them. I know that for some in the congregation, this is a camera moment, but for those of us in the chancel, it's a Claritin moment, I can tell you, right now. But I said to the reporter, I think this is symbolic of the fact that a lot of people are allergic to religion. They aren't sure whether they believe any of it. Even some people who come to church. I mean, who really buys this story? Oh, the New Age types buy it. Oh, they'll buy anything, angels and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, let the New Age ones talk about it. Oh, but we are in a post-Renaissance, post-modern era. We are computer-headed, cyber-tech people. We are smart people. Schubert Ogden is right when he said that most people come to church with this question, preacher, can I believe in God without a sacrifice of intellect? In other words, do I have to leave my brain at the door to come in and buy all this resurrection stuff? The women ran into the same problem. They tried to tell the man, we've seen him. We have a sense that he has been raised from the dead. We've heard it. We want to tell you. But they didn't believe it. No, you're not going to believe this. That's right, said the man. We don't. We don't believe it at all. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I do a brain lecture. I've been doing it for years, since 2000, at medical schools and medical conferences. And one of the interesting facts I share, all the neuroscientists talk about this, is how men's and women's brains are different. Women have a very thick corpus callosum that connects right and left brain and allows them to switch back and forth between right and left brain. We guys have a skinny little corpus callosum. We're stuck in either left or right brain. As a result, women are able to pick up more of what's going on around them, and this is no surprise to women because they know they do already. Right? Why is this the case? Because for millennia, women have had to be multitaskers. So it's developed this thick corpus callosum. They've had to take care of the cave. If they have kids, take care of the kids, have a job outside the cave. Life is simple for us guys. So I think what's really going on here is that the women are catching what's going on in a way the men never catch it. Emotionally, spiritually, intuitively, at a deeper level. Gut feel, a sixth sense, maybe tricks of weather. I don't know. But the women are getting what's really going on that morning. I want you to picture the scene for a moment. It was early dawn, the sky was still dark, the stars shone brightly, and the eastern horizon warmed with a faintly glowing light. The ground was moist with dew as the women pulled their rough cloaks around their arms to ward off the cold morning air. And as they made their way on that hard-beaten pathway, fighting back the tears, they sensed something else had happened that day. Oh, they heard the crows of the roosters echoing all around them, first one, then another, signaling that the world was rising and beginning to stir. But was it different somehow? Was it just another day at the beginning of another week? No, there was something else going on. Chill bumps surfaced on their skin as they looked at each other, wondering what had happened. Something different happened somehow. But what? No one knows what they really saw that help them understand that Jesus had been raised. Oh, the gospel writers do their best to scrape together the evidence with scraps and pieces here and there, rolled back stone, angels, a man or two men in a white robe. You can read all the different accounts, but there is no evidence that he was actually raised from the dead. He could have been stolen, hidden in the ground somewhere. Some scholars even argue that. But the women knew something dramatic had happened. You could see it in their eyes that they were not kidding. This was not just an April Fool's joke. They knew something had happened. What got them? And billions of others throughout the centuries and billions of others around the world right now, what got them? It was the experience of the risen Christ that the early Christians felt. He kept popping up like a jack-in-the-box here and there. On the Emmaus Road, by the seaside, here, there, everywhere. There was no keeping him down, to the point that even the men eventually began to get that this is more than an April Fool's joke. That's the message of Easter, isn't it? There's no keeping God down. There is no keeping love and hope and peace down, no matter how hard the world tries. Something happened, and it changed those women and eventually those men as well, to the point that there was nothing holding them back. They were ready to take on the world. And if it means anything in the 21st century, Easter means this, that eternal truth is always eternal. Always. Oh, you may try to nail it to a tree or wrap it up in grave clothes or seal it in a tomb, but truth crushed to earth will always rise again. It cannot be kept down. It cannot be destroyed. Oh, it may be distorted for a time or silenced temporarily, but it cannot be kept down or beaten down. It may even be compelled to carry a cross, or in another time, in another place, to drink the hemlock that is poisoned. But truth, real truth with a capital T, cannot be kept down. Because after every Good Friday, truth always rises again on Easter morning. What truth, you ask? Well, the truth that your life is not over. The truth that whatever is bothering or disturbing you won't be around forever. The truth that you can overcome the obstacle that is in your way because God has overcome death, the greatest enemy of all. It's more truth than that. It's the truth that you and I have a future, and the future is bright. It is the truth that you should never give up on God, for God will never, ever give up on you or me. Who really buys this story? More than you ever imagined. One Easter after World War II, the communists forced all the churches in this Russian city of 300,000 people to close except one, and all the people in the city came to this one church to worship the resurrection. But the communists set up a disturbance across the square, firecrackers and a brass band to disturb the service. And the people went on. The next day, the same communists forced everyone to come into the city square and listen to 4 hours of their putting down religion. At the end, the chairman looked at the crowd and he said, "Does anyone have a question?" No one said anything. "Well, would anyone like to make a comment?" One man raised his hand. "You? What do you want to say?" I have 3 words. "Well," the chairman snarled, "3 words can't hurt much. Come on up." The man stood behind the microphone. "Come on, we got you up here. What are you going to say?" He just stood there in utter silence, facing the crowd, and then leaned forward and yelled, "Christ is risen!" And the entire mob replied, "He is risen indeed," as they seized the man to haul him off. And it continued on for hours. "He is risen indeed! He is risen indeed!" Who really buys this story? More than you could ever imagine. Who really buys this story? Well, I do. And my hope is that you do too. God bless you all.